Good morning. Unfortunately, this is going to be in English. Is that okay for everyone? The only ones who speak English, they just say yes. Sunday morning, 10 o'clock. Welcome. Yeah, I want to thank you for having me. It's been a great few days. It's unfortunately my last day. I have to go back tonight. And I want to take you on a tour into my latest project, which is really, it's still work in progress actually. I'll tell you a little bit of a history because I've been a photographer for more than 30 years. And my work has always been outside the Netherlands, that's where I live in Amsterdam. And yeah, I covered a lot of conflicts in Africa and the Middle East, and for the last 10, 15 years my work is more focused on issues related to the climate crisis and environmental issues, because I really feel this is going to be the biggest issue of our lifetime. Many conflicts are related to the climate crisis as well. So I was working actually before COVID started. I was working with my Russian friend and colleague Yuri Kozyrev. We were working in the Arctic. Basically, we were looking at what the melting of the North Pole and the melting of the ice sheets in Greenland, etc., what it means for the region. Very interesting project because Yuri is Russian, so he worked in the Russian Arctic and I worked in the Western Arctic simultaneously, so we never met. We met, but we never met while working in the Arctic. Looking at what effect it has on indigenous communities, but also what it means from a military point of view. The Arctic is getting militarized. What it means that the northern sea routes are opening up. So when COVID started, the project came. Well, we got the Carmignac, which is a big photojournalism grant, so we finished it to some extent, but it was not finished at all. And then COVID came, and for me the problem was I couldn't travel anymore. Yuri could still travel in Russia. He couldn't leave the country, but he still had 8 time zones to cover. When COVID was over, he couldn't really work anymore because of the war in Ukraine, and I could work. So yeah, it's still a project which is work in progress. In the meantime, before COVID started, I was also wondering actually, well, let's put it this way, I started to realize that I and I think many of us don't really know anymore where our food is coming from, where it's being produced, how it's being produced, where it's coming from, and where we are bringing it to. So this was a plan for a global project. And as I said, COVID forced me to stay at home, so I decided to look in my own backyard. I never considered the Netherlands very exciting. It's very nice to live in, but it was not very exciting for me to work in. But COVID gave me no choice, so I started to focus on the food production in the Netherlands, which was, the longer I worked on it, the more fascinating and disturbing it became. As you might know, the Netherlands is the second exporter of agricultural products to the world, after the US. I guess you know how small the Netherlands is. So that in itself was already a big question. How is it possible that such a small country can be such a big producer? And the second question was obviously if this is sustainable. So I thought, well, fairly easy to work in the Netherlands. You know, I speak the language, I don't have all the obstacles which you sometimes face as a photographer. But to be honest, it was probably the most difficult thing I ever did in my career. It was incredibly difficult to get access to companies, to, well, to anything related to the food industry was complicated to get in. It was COVID, so often COVID was used as an excuse that people from outside would not be allowed in. Often an excuse, sometimes it was true. So it took a long time actually to make it work and to be able to visit all these different entities. Maybe I'll show you some where it started. Is that disappearing? Yes, it is. The problem, I don't know, I really wondered why it was so difficult. I think there were a few reasons, because number one, COVID was a problem, but the biggest problem was probably that I was interrupting with the marketing idea. If you go into the supermarket, and I guess it's the same in Italy or elsewhere, you know, when you buy eggs, for example, all the pictures on the packages, they all look happy, right? The chickens are happy, they're somewhere outside. The pigs still have a curly tail, and obviously reality is often different. The other problem was that the Netherlands is very small. We have the highest number of production animals in the world per square kilometer. So we have 70 million people, but we have 12 million pigs, we have 5 million cows, we have 100 million chickens. So there's a big problem now with climate-related issues. Farmers are rising up in the Netherlands. You might have seen in the news in the last year, 2 years, there have been big blockades by farmers who were blocking highways, etc. And we took always, you know, I grew up, I was born in the 60s, I grew up with that food is always available, and that food security is a given. With COVID, it showed that distribution channels were fragile. You remember there was maybe a container ship which was blocking the Suez Channel, which was disrupting all the shipping in the world, which was a lot of food commodities. And the war in Ukraine showed what impact it has on our food. Nevertheless, it was fascinating to walk into this industry. The Netherlands is the biggest seed producer in the world. So about 50–60% of the vegetables in the world originate from Dutch seeds. It's a very, very secretive industry. So, you know, they cross DNA samples of different species, which, you know, sometimes it's debatable if this is a good thing. You know the whole discussion about GMOs. But also it's being able to create different kinds of vegetables which are more resistant to excessive rain or excessive heat. The Dutch tomatoes are a good example, because Dutch tomatoes were always, especially by the Germans, they branded it at what they call water bombs, because they were so bad in taste. Nowadays the Dutch tomatoes are one of the best tomatoes. Many of the Dutch tomatoes are actually sold in Italy. I know you Italians think you have the best tomatoes, but it's really, it changed a lot. But it's a weird industry. I mean, one of the biggest seed companies in the world, which was originally Dutch. It's called Syngenta. It was a Dutch company before. Then it was sold to Sandoz and AstraZeneca, very close to the pharmaceutical industry, and it was sold 5 years ago to the Chinese for 35 billion euro. So the Chinese are also trying to get a share in the seed production in the world. This is the biggest tomato producer in Europe, in the north of the Netherlands. It's all greenhouses, so production is year round, and it's just massive. So they produce like 80 million kilos of tomatoes, of which more than 80% is meant for export. The workers are all, except the management, which is most of the time it's Dutch, but all the workers are East European in the Netherlands. So there used to be, the majority used to be from Poland, and now it's shifting towards Bulgaria, Romania, and many are Ukrainian refugees. This is like how do you call it? A vault. So this is where they store the tomato seeds. 1 kilo of tomato seed is equivalent to the price of 1 kilo of gold. Yeah, I don't know if they ever robbed a seed bank, but it's a better business than robbing a real bank, I think. This is a plant lab. It's they say that they are the biggest indoor farm in Europe. It's in Amsterdam. It's in the former typewriter factory of IBM, and they produce basil and salads and well, what they call leafy greens. It's all indoor, there's no sunlight coming in, it's completely enclosed environment. It's sometimes successful, but especially with the war in Ukraine, where energy prices went up incredibly, many of these indoor farms have problems now because of their energy bills. Obviously, it's still a big debate if a tomato which grows, or any vegetable which grows out in the sun, if that tastes better than if it's grown under LED lighting. I'll leave that discussion to you. This is the Westland, which is the bigger, if you go into the food industry, they always claim to be the biggest or the whatever. So I'll try to avoid that word, but it's a very large area with only greenhouses in the world. It's located between The Hague and Amsterdam. It's all greenhouses. So it's basically a glass city. But what's interesting as well is that it's very highly automated. So the whole planting process, etc., is all done by computers. You don't see many people. Only the harvesting is still often done by hand. need they haven't been able, especially for tomatoes, they haven't been able to develop. They're working on a robot who could harvest, but they still haven't succeeded. It was interesting as well because I learned a lot, which one thing which I didn't know. The biggest export product of the Netherlands is the onion. So we produce like 1 billion kilos of onions annually, and we export 90%. The weird thing is obviously that we export 90% and we import onions back. It seems that the Dutch onions, they taste really good, but there are black spots on it, and the Dutch don't like if it doesn't. Well, that's often the problem. That's the beauty to food and what we like or not. It's how it looks like. So we import onions back into the Netherlands without black spots from elsewhere from the world. The whole problem now, as I mentioned in the Netherlands, is now, just to give you a little bit of background, the problem is that if you have production animals like pigs and cows and chickens, they produce methane, which is a greenhouse gas, and they produce nitrogen. So there's been a ruling 3 years ago by the Supreme Court that according to European laws, the Dutch need to cut their nitrogen emissions, which means that we should cut our cattle by at least half. So that's why, if not more, probably 2/3, because these gases, they completely killed biodiversity in the Netherlands. So it looks nice, these green pastures where the cows are, but it's killing fields. There are no insects, there are no flowers. So that's why there's such a big protest by the farmers, and a solution is still not found. Well, if you want to have cheese or milk from a cow, you need to take the calf away from the mother, because otherwise there won't be milk. So we don't eat veal meat, so these are calves. So that's mainly export to Italy and Spain and France. So very good chance, this is a shipment to Italy, very good chance that if you eat veal meat here in Italy, that it's coming from a Dutch cow. Obviously, I mean, I came to this. How I came to this project was partly because I was just, as I said, I was curious and realized that I didn't really know how our food was produced. But it was also because of the previous project which I worked on, where I looked at how waste was managed in 6 major cities in the world, and I realized how much food we are actually wasting. So this is a company which is trying to do good. They are collecting food which is how you say. So you have donuts which are don't have the right color, or so they don't make it to the market. They don't make it into the supermarket. So usually it's being trashed. It goes into incinerators, and this company, they collect these food leftovers. So these are the famous, how you call them? You know those. These waffles. Yeah. So it's enormous amounts of donuts, waffles, wine gums, and it's all for chicken and pig feed. So I didn't know that pigs eat cakes, but they do, and they do like wine gums. So it's all fed to them, which in a way is good because otherwise it would be thrown away. But it's ridiculous if you see what it's perfectly fine to eat this, but since it doesn't match what we think it should look like, it's been trashed. This is the port of Amsterdam, which is a fairly small port. Rotterdam is much larger, it's still the largest in Europe. But Amsterdam is the biggest port for soy in Europe. So it's soy which is mainly coming from the US and Brazil, and which is used to feed our cattle. Yeah, as I said, we have like 12 million pigs. The pig industry is very proud because they say, well, we use everything from the pig is being used, nothing is thrown away. You know, the heads, the legs, the ears, whatever goes to China. Part of the hands, they go to Italy. Because if you send a Dutch ham to Parma and it's been finalized in Parma, you can still sell it as Parma ham. And the spare ribs, they go to the US because it seems that they don't have enough spare ribs there. It's a massive industry. This is the slaughterhouse for pigs, the third largest in the world. They slaughter 20,000 pigs per day. That's why I expect it would be difficult to enter. It was not easy, but it was not the most difficult part. It was more difficult to get into the biggest supermarket in the Netherlands than into the slaughterhouse for some weird reasons. It's probably similar here, you know. I mean, when I was a kid, I realized that things were different. You know, we had vegetables which were from the season. Obviously, we have strong seasons in the Netherlands, so there were vegetables which were only available in the winter, and there were vegetables which were more available in the summer. Nowadays, we expect we get angry if we can't get an avocado or a mango for Christmas. So, you know, I mean, it totally changed. What also is those factories. I think, you know, nowadays in the Netherlands, if you buy vegetables, they're usually pre-cut and they packaged. So, you know, you often, if you don't know what the original vegetable looked like, you won't know. So they are all cut and pre-packed, which is a very profitable business actually. That's the It's one of the distribution centers of one of the big supermarkets in the Netherlands. Um, I mean, it's amazing as well. You know, we get pissed off if a product is not available in the supermarket, but if you look at the logistics behind it, and that most of the time it is available, it's quite amazing. So, I mean, the original idea, as I said, was to make this a global project. So I thought, okay, I'm going to travel to different parts of the world and look at how they deal with their food production and how they try to be sustainable and ready for the future. So when I was able to travel, I started to work abroad. Yeah, you probably, this project required, well, most of my projects require a lot of research. I spend much more time on research than on actually shooting. This was definitely the case with this, and especially because if you try to get access, if you have knowledge and you know what you're talking about, it helps you. So that's, I think it helped down the line. It also helped down the line that more and more companies agreed that I could come in, and then other companies started to ask why they were not included. So it kind of turned around after some time. So I went to the Emirates and to Saudi Arabia. The main reason was, as you can imagine, it's located they both have a very harsh climate, super hot summers, mostly desert. So they have to import most of their food commodities. But they both want to become independent and they want to manage their own food production, where Saudi even has a plan to be the main exporter of the region of food commodities. So they have their cows, they have Dutch cows, they have Dutch cows everywhere for dairy. The only difference is that they are usually not outside because it's too hot, so they have these cooling systems to keep them cool, because a dairy cow should not be, the temperature should not be more than 28 degrees, and in Emirates or Saudi you can go up to 50 degrees in the summer. Well, money is not an issue, at least that's what they think in Saudi, so they just buy the technology. So they have the largest dairy farms now. They have like 150,000 cows in one farm. The greenhouses, they are built by the Dutch. The technology is coming from the Netherlands. So everything seems to be possible. Doesn't matter what the climate is. The only problem is water. So the Emirates, they have a solution which is desalination. So they have big plants which transform the seawater into drinkable water. Very expensive because of the energy costs, and it's polluting as well. In Saudi, it's a bigger problem. They had their water resources, but they are depleting now. So they are starting to experiment with geoengineering. So geoengineering is, I think the Soviets and the Chinese came up with this idea for the first time. If it was revolution, you didn't want to have it rain in Moscow, so they would use chemicals in their clouds so that it would not rain that day in Moscow. You can also turn it around and you can make it rain, so that's what they're trying to do. They succeeded to some extent last year, so they sent a warning to the population that it would rain. It did rain, it completely flooded, because you can't control how much it rains. exactly, and the side effect was that there were very severe sandstorms in the whole region afterwards. So it wasn't considered to be a huge success. This is the company is called Al Wataniya. It's in Saudi, and they have chickens for meat and chickens for eggs. They have 34 million chickens, and they slaughter 1 million a day. Halal, so they have to do it by hand. So I think I make the calculation, that's 11 per second. Well, this makes a little bit more sense. You know, if you can milk a cow, you can milk a camel. Very healthy, actually. But a camel produces a lot less milk than a cow does. So, but it's growing. So you have camel chocolate, camel milk, well, anything which you can make from a cow, you can do from a camel. It's a huge indoor farm in Dubai. They produce now all the green salads for Emirates, for the airline. Made me wonder why you would build an indoor farm in the middle of the desert, if that really makes sense, but obviously energy is not an issue so far. No solar panels to be seen, but yeah, they seem to manage so far. This is the port of Dubai, called Jebel Ali, which is grew enormously over the years. This is the central control tower. So this is the container terminal. So it's not like people sitting on the cranes, but there's one central control tower where the containers are being loaded or discharged from the container ships, and the people who manage the cranes are all women. So this is the average the container ships are now, the bigger ones are all 300 meters, 400 meters actually. Well, I can't. So one container ship has 23,000 containers. Well, you see them driving on the highway, so you can imagine on one ship. Many of them are the regular containers for your electronics and whatever is in there, and then you have the reefer containers. A reefer container means that it's cooled, and if it's a reefer, almost certainly it contains food commodities. So it's kept at the temperature of 5 degrees or far below 0 if it's frozen products. But every reefer container is connected to the electricity of the ship. So yesterday was MSC cruise ships here. This is MSC containers, where you transport chickens or people. It's all the same. Well, I couldn't miss out on the US. I mean, the US is obviously the trap was the cliche of the US. Everything is bigger than big there. At the same time, if there's one country which is hit very hard by the climate crisis, although many people deny it in the US, it's that country. Severe droughts, severe floods, more hurricanes, stronger hurricanes, tornadoes, fires. So really they have a lot of problem with that many heifers are failing nowadays. So there is a movement which is really trying to promote that farming should be revised in the US. At the same time, you have the beautiful city of Hereford, which is in Texas. They call it the beef capital of the world. It is the beef capital of the world. Yeah, there's not a lot of people, but there are a lot of cows. So I went to one ranch, which allowed me in. They have 250,000 cows, mainly for beef, and they're growing to 500,000 for food. It's in Texas, it's close to Amarillo, so it's pretty much desert. So they don't have like the nice green grasslands we have in the Netherlands, so they are in the what they call feedlots. So these are all the grain silos to feed the cattle in this town. So these are where the calves are. Yeah, and the issue is obviously that that cattle needs to be fed. So you know, they need soy and corn and alfalfa, which is a very good. Well, it's not a very good grass, but it's the cattle eats it. And that was remarkable actually because they grow alfalfa in the US, but Saudi has been purchasing land now in different American states to grow this for the cattle in Saudi. Uses a lot of water. But there are very high-tech greenhouses, so this is called Little Leaves, and the guy who started this, he's promoting that the production should be brought back to the suburbs of the city. So don't bring it from California to New York, but this is the outskirts of Boston, and he's planning to be able to produce all the lettuce and whatever is needed for the wider city, the greater city of Boston. Vertical farms in the US have been booming, very interesting because all the I've been at four vertical farms over the last bit more than a year. Don't touch the table. Yeah. 3 of them went bankrupt. So big investors came in because it looked like very profitable, but they didn't get return on investment quick enough. Energy prices hiked, and a couple of them went bankrupt. And the interesting part is that they are usually run by tech people. So this is Arrow Farms in Newark, New Jersey. Yeah, the other one is not. There was another one which is called Square Roots, which is founded and run by Kimball Musk, the brother of what's his name? Thank you. So it's all people who are coming from a tech background, which is maybe part of the problem. So they have not really a clue how this actually works, but they know how it could work by technology. So actually all the pig farmers I spoke to, the dairy farmers I spoke to, they all have, they foresee that they are probably the last generation. because it's becoming too difficult, not profitable enough, and like especially in the pig industry, the price of pig seems to be very low, so it's not worthwhile anymore. So I think that there will be a radical change somehow in the US. This is corn harvest, mainly for Europe. Being transported down the Mississippi River, going to the port of New Orleans, and being loaded for Amsterdam or elsewhere. This is Cargill, the biggest Cargill facility in. So the barges bring it, then it's being processed at this plant, and then it's going into bulk carriers. This one was actually going to China. Where they had a flood for a very long period in California, a drought, I'm sorry, it turned into a flood earlier this year. So this is South Dakota. It's Rosebud Reservation. It's the Lakota people, Native First Nation, Native American, Sioux. A very proud nation, once in a day. Today they are in a really bad shape. Obesity is 83%, and life expectancy is 30 years lower than the American average. So they're trying to change their diet, and so they're starting these vegetable gardens, and most of all, well, that explains part of the problem. They brought back the buffalo. They were the buffalo people. They had, I think there were once in a day, there were like 60 million buffaloes in the US. They were all killed by colonizers. And they are bringing back the buffaloes now to, so they have the biggest herd in the world now. And this is not the buffaloes, by the way. This is what you call a real vertical farm. The company is called Plenty. It's the most high-tech automated vertical farm I've seen. It's completely automated. It's in Compton, which is one of the rough neighborhoods of Los Angeles. So they made a deal, or their main investor is Walmart Foods. So they are saying, or they are hoping to distribute these vegetables to low-income neighborhoods. If this is going to be successful, it needs to be seen. This is what they call a cold storage. So you have a cool storage and a cold storage. So this is a cold storage. In the port of New Orleans, this is only chickens, frozen, so it's minus 35, minus 40 in there, and it's all export. What's interesting, because I was walking around with the people there, and I said, so what is your main country of where you're exporting to? And they said it's Cuba. Obviously that's relatively new, but then I noticed that most of the boxes said that it was halal. So I said, well, since when are they eating halal chicken in Cuba? And they said, well, we export to Cuba, and then Cuba can export to where we cannot export to, like Russia or Iran. So This was really, well, it's all very, very recent. Kenya went to, because it became the vegetable garden of Europe. It's amazing how we know that we outsourced, our clothes are made in Pakistan or Bangladesh. We know that our phones are coming mainly from China, but we did the same with our food production. So why was there a problem when the war in Ukraine happened? Because most of the grain, at least to the Netherlands, or the sunflower seeds or whatever, was coming from Ukraine. That production is not in the Netherlands anymore, it's elsewhere. Same with the vegetables. Most of our vegetables now are not produced locally anymore because we don't want to wait for the right season. We want sugar snaps, avocados, mangoes, all year round. So there are huge, huge farms in Kenya which produce only for export. Still, it mainly comes by air freight. So the avocados, mainly avocados who come by ship, and the rest is coming. It's being picked today, it's being packed in the evening, and it's in the store today. So it's done because we can have our vegetables all year round, but it's also obviously cheap labor. So average worker on a farm in Kenya earns $2, maximum $3 a day. So that makes it worthwhile that they cut your mango by hand and slice it and put it in a tray, which makes that what you buy in the supermarket here, the tray of mango is more expensive than the day salary of the worker. This is at Nairobi Airport, so it's shipped from the farms to the processing plants at the airport. It's being processed in the day, in the afternoon, and it goes onto a cargo flight in the night. Oregano, basil, thyme. Well, you're a basil country, we are not. So I didn't know that they only cut the tops of the basil plant. 90% of the plant is wasted because we seem to want just the top of the plant in this plastic bag. I asked why didn't we make pesto from the rest, but they said there's no one to eat pesto in Kenya. Avocados, shipment for Rotterdam. Yeah, this was a very puzzling chapter. I've been with the Dutch food authorities on inspections at Schiphol Airport and in the port of Rotterdam, and I noticed that there was this incredible amount of Nile perch coming in every day. Two cargo planes per day are arriving at Schiphol, Nile perch, Victoria Lake. Maybe anyone saw Darwin's Nightmare 20 years ago, very famous documentary. It was a documentary about this invasive fish was put in Victoria Lake, and it's a very big aggressive species, and it adds everything which exists in the lake. So it's only Nile perch. So it's being overfished, it's fished extensively, and it's being shipped to Europe. But so far, no one really has been able to tell me what we do with the Nile perch. because it's not a very common fish you would see on a menu. But they sell it as whitefish. So it seems that, I don't know if you have this, but we have these fish sticks you can buy. They're frozen and you...
A bit.
Yeah.
Supermarket.
Seems that that's now perch. Victoria Lake in Kenya, but the business is mainly run by Somalians. So it's being caught it's arriving in the day at the beaches of the lake. It's being put in ice, it's being shipped to Nairobi, and it's on a flight in the night. Thank you. Did I change my food habits? It's very difficult to change it. So yes, I eat a lot less meat. I'm much more aware. I check if it's on the packaging. I'll check where it's coming from. But it definitely made me rethink. It got more crazy by the day. If you really dive into this, it's a crazy industry. So I hope you have good lunch. Any questions? Or
yeah, do this work will go into a book or something?
yeah. It's not done yet, as I said. Yeah, it will be a book, but the exhibition will open this Thursday in Amsterdam. So the only chapter which is really missing is China. Tomorrow I'm interviewed by the Chinese embassy in the Netherlands, and they will decide if I'm allowed to go to China. I'm really, really curious about China. China is, I think, in many ways much more ahead of us in terms of how they produce their food and where they produce it. So I'm really curious to find out. The way I built this story was initially that these chapters were like not connected to each other, but now I couldn't avoid that there's always a Dutch angle, because I haven't been in any greenhouse in the world which was not built by the Dutch. I haven't seen a slaughter line which was not manufactured in the Netherlands, or the technology so the Netherlands is kind of still at the heart of the story, which I never expected actually. So the book is hopefully coming out in February.
And the structure of the book will be just like the other, with a lot of scientific part, the maps or...
Yeah, there will be, this needs to be, the book, the whole project needs to be research based, so there will be a lot of data in it. And I think that data makes it more, I have a lot of data obviously, and I have a lot of video as well, which I didn't include in this presentation because it would have lasted too long. But the data is really, I think, that makes you think. Although it's very difficult to still, what's 1 billion kilos of tomatoes? I'm trying to figure out how to make that a number we understand. You don't want to go into the trap of the 26 Olympic swimming pools. So if anyone has an idea how to visualize this, I would appreciate.
More questions?
Yes,
What
Kadir.
did we eat last night?
Okay. Kadir, there's another question.
Yes. How long does it take for you to realize this project in any of these countries?
How long it took? You mean to get the
Yeah.
permissions and to be able to? I think if I, well, first of all, if I've known before how difficult it would have been, I probably would not have done it. At the same time, the more difficult it got, the more curious I became, and the more determined I became to make it work. But yeah, I don't know. You know, I mean, it took endlessly to get the permissions. And sometimes it was unexpectedly easy. You know, as I said, the slaughterhouse in the Netherlands was a lot easier than I anticipated. This ranch in Texas, I'm doing this for the Washington Post as well. They said, "Good luck, you will never get in." And after one email, they said, "You're very welcome." And I asked them when I was there and I left, I said, "So why you let me in?" And they said, "Because you're Dutch." They somehow, well, first of all, many of the American farmers, including them, are from Dutch origin, so they are third, fourth generation. And I don't know, Americans think that all Dutch are farmers. Right? So I'll leave that image. I mean, it was easier to get into a greenhouse than to get into the animal production. But not always, because then there would be like company secrets or, you know, the access would then in another way be restricted.
Thank you.